Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Converse with Clover as we discuss Second Chance Month. I'm your host, Clover A. Perez, and today I am joined by my co-host, Philip A. Jones from The Wall Behind and Beyond. We're honored to have an incredible changemaker with us who is working tirelessly within the criminal justice landscape to share his truth, use his voice, and challenge a system that upholds mass incarceration. His work is powerful, personal, and transformative. Now I'll turn it over to my co-host, Philip, to introduce our guest, Dominique DuPont.
Thank you, Clover, for having me. What's up, everybody? It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be co-hosting today's episode of Converse with Clover, a show that embodies and encapsulates the realities of life and the human experience. Today on the show, like Clover said, we have the brother Dominique DuPont, who, like myself, this brother was just 19 years of age when he entered prison and was also sentenced to life. By the grace of God, he is now free and doing big things for other justice-impacted men and women. I won't list or mention all of his achievements and accomplishments here, because if I did, this intro would go on forever. That said, the brother is a model of excellence in the world of criminal justice reform, which includes mentorship, public speaking, peer support, prison reform, and the list goes on. Welcome the brother Dominique DuPont to the show. How you holding, brother?
I'm good. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dr. Clover, for having me. I'm honored and privileged to be here and to continue to raise awareness around the important issues around like what second chances look like. And really to help people understand that most of us are not fighting for a second or third chance. We're really fighting for a first. And this conversation, I think, is integral and an integral part of, raising awareness around these really important issues. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what your journey has looked like?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Dominique DuPont. I'm 47 years old. At the age of just turning 19, I was arrested, charged, and ultimately convicted for murder in the second degree and several other related charges. I spent some of my teens in prison, all of my 20s, all of my 30s, and started my 40s. And at that point, I had been doing a lot of work on the inside, helping people understand how important it was to do introspection, take a look at not only what brought them to prison, but how is it they ever going to get out? And more important than that, how are they going to stay out and transfer some of those skills that they had learned behind the wall into the community? After doing a lot of that work, this idea that good programming was good security was something that resonated with me. I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to receive a commutation from the governor on December 27th, 2017, and was released a few weeks later, January 22nd, 2018. At that point, there was a lot going on because my uncle, the late, great Michael K. Williams, who's most famously known for his role in a show called The Wire, was doing a lot of work and raising awareness about the school to prison pipeline. And it just sort of like fell right in place with the time that I was being released. And we were able to feature a lot of the work that I was doing on the inside and in this documentary called Raised in the System. We received the Emmy nomination for it. And then that was really like the catalyst to the work that I started doing on the outside. I had visited more prisons since I had been out of prison than when I was in prison. And just really, focused on raising awareness, creating policies, helping people understand that idea about policy close to proximity. Those who were most impacted were probably the people who, had the solutions, but were furthest from resources. And I wanted to leverage my lived experience to raise more awareness about that. And that's sort of like shortly after my uncle had died from a fentanyl overdose, there was like me doing work around, mercy and what that looked like. There was a big New York Times article about me asking for fair sentence, and those individuals were arrested and took pleas in federal court. But there's a big article about me asking for empathy and love and compassion as the judge was making a determination to sentence those individuals who were pleading guilty to, multiple sort of like conspiracy drug charges. But yeah, it was that work and my lived experience and this idea that what you heard me talk about earlier, that those men were also dealing with their own issues and their own challenges. And so now I do a lot of work around policy. I do some work at Columbia University. I'm a full-time student there. I'm also hired as a research assistant in the psychology department. And our goal is really to focus on helping people who've experienced trauma. So in a nutshell, that's sort of like, my journey, my prison experience, my journey, some success that I've had on the outside around policy, working with my uncle and other elected officials. And now the work that I'm doing in academia to, continue to raise awareness around supporting men and women all across the country who are dealing with the prison culture and the prison experience and how do we help them. So thank you.
That is awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I cannot even begin to imagine what going into prison at the age of 19 feel like for you, but now that you're home and you're bringing awareness to the prison system and just using your voice, telling your stories to help bring awareness, I appreciate that because no one wants to relive their trauma, right? And going to prison especially at such a young age is extremely traumatic. So I appreciate that all that you're doing. Philip, you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, brother, I love what you had to say. I can relate to what you said because I too was 19 when I entered the system and I was given a life sentence and I'm still incarcerated and I've already served well over 3 decades. This is not a game. It's not a joke. When we hear stories like yours, it gives us that type of motivation to continue to fight for these policies to be changed, for these sentences, reforms to be put in place. But I was really listening to your story. You know what I mean? I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, man, and that Wire show, man, is something that anybody from Baltimore didn't know about because it's big time over there. You know what I mean? It was talking about my city. And your uncle, rest in peace. He played Omar, I'm pretty sure. And I heard about it, man. I was like, I felt like I knew him, because I watched him on the show for so many years. But, hey, man, I'm glad that you got out and that you started, man, doing things in proactive ways, man, to try to, make a difference in the system because we need people like you. So I appreciate that. I salute you, man, and keep doing that, what you're doing, man.
Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you. I'm honored here. I don't take it lightly to take on, this huge task of, reshaping what public safety looks like and trying to find effective ways to, help people who are dealing with like really tough challenges. And, the reality is we can't arrest our way out of this situation. We have to be methodical. We have to think about what distance means, and we have to try to find effective ways to, help people make a successful transition back into the community. And, throwing people in cages for the rest of their life is not going to work. It just isn't. And I know we can do better and we should do better. This is a land of free. I'd like to think that that's what I hear a lot. And we can't just talk about it. We got to be about it. We got to be able to, walk the talk, not just talk the talk. And that means that we have to work really hard to continue to work with elected officials on the state, local, and the federal level to see if we can continue to help our brothers and sisters make a successful transition back into the community.
Yes. Well, yes, that's true. And sometimes we don't really understand the enormity of what the prison system does to us personally, society at large, and also our family until we ourselves are thrust into the system and we realize that, wow, we're basically in the belly of the beast. This is what we're dealing with, right? And we, look at people who are supposed to be compassionate, supposed to have mercy, grace, and also understand that they themselves make mistakes, and to punish people who are human beings. We're all humans. To punish us with these draconian sentences, it's harsh. And so I applaud you, because it's not an easy thing to get out of, and it comes with a lot of trauma. So, but I see that you're doing great, and I'm happy about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when you hear the phrase second chance, what does it personally mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, the word second chance to me kind of goes back to the point that I was making earlier. A lot of us are really fighting for a first. And, that is our reality. You come from certain communities, and, your tax bracket is not, what it is in other affluent communities. Those type of things resonate with me and jump out to me. But yeah, I think, when I think about second chances for a lot of people like me, Philip, and millions of other people who are locked in cages, across the nation. Yeah, I think about a fair chance. It's not so much a second chance. This is a fair chance. And the fact that we have to struggle and fight to get our first chance, which, a lot of people are calling a second chance, troubles me and reminds me that there's so much more work to be done. Thankfully, there are some things happening at a federal level where people are, having their sentences looked at. And that's important to me. I met an amazing judge out of the Eastern District. His name is Frederick Block, and he's, reviewing a lot of people's cases. He wrote a book called Second Chances. And he's, taking the opportunity to review cases, people who he gave long sentences to because, this bill that was signed. And I'd like us to see do more there. But, those are my views on a second chance. How do we continue to expand what that looks like? What more can be done, and how are we going about looking at the success of those individuals who are being released? And what I'd also argue is let's look at other ways, other outlets to provide second chances. Clemency was a second chance for me. It was, the word clemency means mercy, and I think that there are a lot of people who are incarcerated who deserve mercy and deserve an opportunity to be contributing members of society in the community. So when I think about what second chances mean to me, those are the things that jump out at me.
For sure, man. You hit on something. You talked about tax brackets, man. And when you say that, what comes to mind is that a lot of us come from poverty-stricken areas. A lot of us had parents that was addicted to drugs. There were lack of resources in those communities, and just life circumstances in general. So what has to happen is that there has to be a consideration taken for these type of circumstances, because if you said something about a judge, and when you said that the judge was writing a book on second chances, I was smiling, because this is necessary, man. These judges that we're having in these courts, they gotta have the courage to become more progressive and express that mercy that you talked about and that compassion, because regardless of what has happened in this person's circumstances in their case, as a society, employ more mercy and more compassion. So I'm glad that you said that, man. And if we can get one that's doing it, maybe we can get more. And maybe, man, when the time comes, as we progress as a nation, they can start seeing that it's not necessary to give out these types of sentences where you put people in these cages and never let them go. You know what I mean? That's just like, it's uncivilized.
Couldn't agree more with you, brother.
Yes, that is great. A few weeks ago, Philip and I had a conversation, And we had a conversation it was leading into April, which is Second Chance Month, and we decided that we wanted to do something. And my question to him was, do you believe that you had a first chance? And, he said no. And I was like, yeah, I don't believe that you did, because you had economic barriers, you had, environmental impediments, the poverty, the area that you live in, all of those things are barriers, right? And you can have a first chance in areas like that, and when you're growing up like that. So I believe that, yes, it's almost like a stepping stone, right? And you have to have a first chance before you move on to a second chance. And there's a lot of people that are incarcerated that never got a first chance. So I love that you touched on that.
Thank you, Dr. Perez.
Absolutely. Why do you think Second Chance Month is so important, and what message does it send to returning citizens and society at large?
Yeah, so I think it's really important because I think as a society at large, we have a responsibility for the humanity in me to see the humanity in you. Mm. And that's the reason why it's so important. I mean, we live in a civil society, and what I would like to think is that we know that people can change. And if we don't know that, we should know that. And that's the reason why I think it's so important for people in society to have a really good understanding about the importance of what it means for second chance to be advanced.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we're going to shift it a little bit. Who has helped you the most in your process of rebuilding your life since you've been home, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful because I've had a lot of support. A lot of the people who have helped me make a successful transition back into the community were people that were with me from day one. And what I like to remind people is the three things that kept me grounded on the inside was my faith, my family, and my freedom. I call them the 3 Fs. And what I realized was that if it wasn't about my faith, my family, or my freedom, everything else was a minor distraction. And I realized, you're either going to play in the minors or you're going to play in the majors. And prison is major. It's serious. It's, we have to think about, where we at. There's a lot of things going on. Isolation is, it's a lot to deal with. But, I was fortunate and blessed enough to have family, to have support, to have my faith. And that ultimately led to me having my freedom. And those same individuals who supported me on the inside supported me on the outside. And I've been able to leverage, the work that I'm doing with folks because I think they see, where my commitment is at. And, the goal is to help other people, understand that they can have the same success that I've had, but they just have to be able to get on their side first. And the way to do that is to raise more awareness about, second chances.
Yeah, that is so true. And, prison is a dark place. It's hard to find hope, and it's hard to hold on to your faith. So, when you say faith, family, and freedom, those were the 3 things that held me together, right? Those were my glue, my faith, because I felt like if I had lost faith, I had lost everything. And my family was there to support me. And every day I woke up, it was like, I'm going home. And I held on to that. Even though it didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen, it happened because there were times there's a lot of people that go to prison and they have more time added because they lose their good time, or they, caught up another case. So there's a lot of things that can happen. So I love the fact that you said that you held on to those, because it reminded me of those are the things that were so important to me, and that's what I held on to. So I'm going to turn this over to Philip.
Yeah, those 3 F's that you talked about, faith, family, and freedom, are essential. Because when you look around this prison environment, it's oftentimes very gloomy. It's oftentimes you see a lot of broken men in these situations because they don't have faith, family, and freedom. And they're so essential to a man maintaining himself and holding on until he can put himself in a position to regain his liberty. So you talked about support. You got to have support. Mentorship is key. When you have these things, your focus is in the right place. And when your focus is in the right place, you can circumnavigate some of the issues that you see happening in the prison setting. Because otherwise, when you become a hopeless individual, you become a dangerous individual, not only to yourself, but those around you. So I'm so glad that you mentioned those, because a lot of times people think that we're just in here and it's okay. We're okay. Just stay out of trouble. And that's all easier said than done when you live in a microscopic fishbowl where, you see these same people with you around you 24 hours a day. You can't get away from that. You got to either figure out a way to live with it, navigate the environment, or you become a part of the environment, and the environment might swallow you up. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. What were some of the hardest parts of your reentry or starting over after your incarceration?
Yeah, I think some of the most difficult things was, me getting used to what it was to feel and to be free again. That was really complex. You don't wash the stench of prison off of you very quickly when you're transitioning back into the community. Technology was another really complicated process. And in the state that I was in, we didn't have access. They have it now, like tablets and other things. But, anything electronic was an infraction. So that, there was, some struggles there. Being used to having people around me, always making sure that I could see who's coming in and coming out, always having my back up against, an entry point, when I'm sitting in a restaurant, things like that was, there was complexities around, hearing silverware fall, because where I was at, if someone was dropping silverware, if you heard keys shaking, those were signs that, someone might be getting murdered. So those were the most difficult challenges for me. And some of those things I still struggle with because, like I said, I've been home 7 years now. You don't wash off the stench of prison very easily. Wearing my slippers in the shower and always opening up a refrigerator, because now I realize that I have access to food and I could buy things. I still open up the refrigerator to check it if it's still there, as if, some CO came and took it away from me. So yeah, those things I struggle with, but I'm better now.
Brother, that's it, because I think it's very informative, and I think that those who listen should hear more about this. A lot of times they say we're institutionalized. No, what we are is traumatized. When he talked about the silverware falling on the floor, when he talked about the keys of the guard shaking, and you feel this intensity, your body freezes because you know that something is happening right now. And it's kind of like when you constantly having this type of reaction, it's like a fight or flight reaction that's ongoing and it never subsides. And that's a problem, because when you're out in the world and you're facing some type of dangerous situation, you have the fight or flight, but eventually it subsides, because that's the way that it was intended to do. But in a prison environment that's highly stressful, you never completely come down from the fight or flight response. And that's an imbalance of chemicals, which causes all kinds of emotional and mental issues with people that's incarcerated, especially for long periods of time. So I just wanted to point that out. And I thought that was very significant, and a lot of people don't know that. They need to know those type of things.
Yeah. But someone has said was his prison post-traumatic disorder, but it's prison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is what you're going through. But I want you to just continue to push through it and know that, God is a good God, right? And he will never take you back to where he took you from, okay? And just keep that in mind. And just when you're going through those hard times, just keep reaffirming yourself and say, you know what, this is where I'm at right now. I'm never going back. Prison is no longer my portion, right? I'm not going back there. I did the time. And sometimes we go through things and we don't understand why we go through those things. Someone has asked me at one point, what's your favorite phrase? And I say, I didn't like the destination. I mean, I didn't like the journey, but I love the destination because I love where I'm at right now, that I can help people. I did not have that support as far as, yes, I have family support, but I didn't have outside support that knew about prison to help me to, when I get into prison, of what to expect. I didn't have that, so I had to navigate that process by myself. And it was very, very hard. It was really, really hard because you don't know what to expect. My reference point of prison was what I saw on media. And so when I went into prison, I was expecting to be sprayed down, my hair cut. I was going to be in an orange suit, in a locked in a cell. Those were what I was expecting. And so it was really, really hard when I was designated to Danbury. And I'm like, oh my God, this is where I'm going now. This is all that's going to happen. I'm not going to see my family, but again, I held on to my faith. I held on to my faith. It became my anchor, and that's what's undergird me through that journey. Because if I did not have that, I would have probably died in prison, because it was so hard. It was so hard. So I appreciate you sharing. Again, as I said, I understand that it can be traumatic at some times when people speak about prison, because prison, it's not easy. It's just a dark place, and we never want to go back into that dark place. So since you have been home, who has helped you with your rebuilding your life?
I've had a lot of support. I think, people in my school, Columbia, there's, obviously a lot going on there now, but I've had support from the folks at Columbia. I've had support from my family. I've had support from people who work in the community and do work around advocacy and policy. And I've been able to provide support in areas to help them raise awareness, met with some government folks. So yeah, it's been a lot of those people who have been there and been really instrumental in helping me further what my vision and my mission is. So yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, brother, how can we shift the public narrative from punishment to restoration and rehabilitation? What do you think this would take?
I think we continue to raise awareness, educate people. I think we continue to highlight the positive stories. There's a lot of people who were in prison, doing amazing work in the community. People in the community are not hearing about it in ways that they're hearing about, maybe someone else who was system impacted and is, reoffended and, had some challenges or had mental health issues. So I think the goal is to continue to raise awareness around success stories, continue to reshape like what public safety looks like, and take a look at what are some of the root causes that lead people to prison, and try to get in front of those things. For the life of me, I don't understand why poverty is not a crime. Yeah, it's things like that I think we should continue to raise awareness about and would shift and change the narrative.
Yes, definitely. Let's talk about hope. What gives you hope right now, personally, or in the bigger picture of justice reform?
Yeah, I really feel like what gives me hope is realizing that if I don't have hope, I'm hopeless.
Say that again.
Yeah. What gives me hope is I realize that if I don't have hope, I'm hopeless. And that is a dark place to be. But what also gives me hope is the work that you're doing, Dr. Perez, the work that Philip is doing, and the opportunities that I'm having in the community now. And, I realize the sky is not falling. Some days are better than others, but, my goal is not to let the tough days win. And it is those things that inspire me and move me. Every time I go back into a prison, every time I go into Rikers Island, every time I talk to an elected official who's, doing work around policy, or, I'm meeting with, last week I met with the Commissioner of Corrections for Rikers Island, and, we have relationships with other folks and partners that are, supervising these agencies and, having conversations and trying to see how we can move the needle are things that give me hope. But most of all is, what I started off by saying, I want to see us build community. I want to see us be safe. I want to see people who've had challenges overcome those challenges and be successful. And the only way to do that is to look at some of the root causes. And it is those things that have inspired me and continue to give me hope.
That is powerful. What gives me hope right now is seeing people like you and Philip, even though Philip is still incarcerated, right? You guys are using your voices to, shift the narrative. And because of your lived experiences, you guys have shown up as expertise, And so I remember hearing, it's well known, Glenn Martin says, coined the phrase, those closest to the problem or closest to the solution. And that's a great thing,
but furthest from resources.
For further, right. Yeah. But Clover says those closest to the pain are closest to the power. So yes, that's what I say. Closest to the pain, because we understand, we have that deep feeling of what it is and a deep understanding of what it is to go through that. No one else has that but us, right? And we know what it is that we need. And so I said, yes, those are closest to the pain or closest to the power. Philip, what do you have to say about that?
Glenn better watch out.
Yes, I think that you said it better than anybody has said it, because that's really, really real. Hope is seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Hope is being able to, chart a course for you to get back to what matters: your family, your freedom, your loved ones, your life, your success. That's having hope. And you can never let that go or give that up, even under the worst of circumstances. So I like what both of you had to say about that. That's amazing and that's powerful. So I hope the listeners get that too and understand it as well. As we honor Second Chance Month, what do you want people listening today to remember most about your story?
I think what I want people to remember most is that there's so much more work for me to do. There's so much more work for us as a community to do. What I want people to remember most is that there's nothing special about me, that there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are capable of accomplishing the things that I have accomplished in life and more. We just have to give them a chance to accomplish it. Those are the things I want people to remember most, that I'm a servant leader, that my goal is to be of service and to help our community heal. So when people think about me and they think about Second Chance Month, I want them to know that everything that I've accomplished is because someone gave me mercy and gave me a second chance, which I firmly believe I call the first. But, for the purposes of this conversation, I want people to remember that there's so many more people who are deserving of a second chance, and we have a responsibility to help them accomplish that. And if we don't, we are complicit in the direction that things are going. And that doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be. hopeless. It can be hope. We can be hopeful. People don't have to be dealing with all of the traumatic things that they're dealing with. If we're open to, seeing the changes that they've made in their life and give them an opportunity to pour back into communities. Those are the things I want people to take away.
That's awesome. That's powerful. Thank you. Well, if you have anything to say on that?
Brother, that's what you said was amazing, man. And I feel the same way. It's countless of people across the United States that's in the same circumstances that me and you were and what I'm still in. And what I want people to understand is that when given an opportunity, people oftentimes do what they need to do to foster change and hope. People ask me why or how I was able to change all the time. And I say, it wasn't because I was some special person. It was because I wanted to change the narrative attached and associated to me as a young Black man. I wanted to regain my dignity, which I feel had been stolen. I wanted to be treated like a human being. I wanted my legacy to reflect more than just prison. I wanted them to know that I was a man of consequence, regardless of the fact that I made some mistakes in life. So, I just want to say, man, in closing that, it's people like you, man, that sets the tone for other people to see that they have the permission in themselves to recruit and regain their composure as a human being and push forward in the same way you was able to do. They just need to see it. They just need to see somebody else do it. That's another thing that gives them hope. So I thank you, man, so much for, coming on, man, and talking about these things, man, that it's hard to sometimes explain to people that never had these experiences.
You were featured in an Emmy-nominated HBO documentary titled Raised in the System. Can you tell us a bit about that experience and what that documentary was about? And secondly, how did it feel to look back and see your story told in that way, especially knowing everything that you went through?
Yeah, that story was my uncle's love letter to people in the community. And it was a journey to raise awareness about the school to prison pipeline and the draconian policies that are in place that have affected so many people from Black and brown communities and poor people. It just wasn't a color thing, it was also a class thing. Mm-hmm. How I feel about my story being shown in that light on HBO and how well it was received, receiving an Emmy nomination. There's nothing I can say except how humbled I am to have been part of a story that has and continues to raise awareness and has shaped the minds of a lot of people, elected officials, people incarcerated, people who supervise people who are incarcerated, and just has impacted them in a really, really positive way. My goal is to continue that work and continue to elevate that story. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It's not easy, to talk about things that we have been through, the things that we have experienced, the things that we saw, in prison, and to say it in a way that people would honor our feelings and recognize that things need to be changed in the system. And know that, there have to be other alternatives to incarceration. You cannot just throw people away like that. We weren't put on this earth to be caged, right? We're free spirit. And caging someone, it only is going to make them worse, not better. But we have to come up with other ways. And this country needs to do better for its people. Definitely needs to do better for its people. We have other countries out there that's showing up for their citizens, right? They don't want to see them in prison. They acknowledge the fact that they committed a crime, but they try to help them, to regain some type of semblance in their life, and to, especially when they have accepted accountability for the things that they do. So we need to do better, and we need to look at those countries and start learning from them. So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate this. I know you have a very, very busy schedule. So, and my apologies again for not showing up. I was just waiting for the invite, but I didn't know how that went. But I thank you. Now I know when you put my name on it, I should just show up.
Wow, pop
Yeah.
out.
Absolutely, man. Stay up, man, and keep doing what you're doing. And I also wanted to ask you, is the HBO special, is it on Adobo? Because I want to know if we can see that. If we can see that on Adobo, is there any way we can get that on there if it's not on there?
It's a good question. You can find it on YouTube for free.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure. I've heard a little bit about Adobo, but I don't know like how much, like what type of material they show. I've shown the documentary in prisons and jails all across the country. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'd be interested in, an opportunity to screen a doc and talk to folks. I don't, that's something Dr. Clover Perez we could talk about. I don't know. But to answer your question very specifically, you can find it on YouTube for free if you Google it. I don't know if y'all have that type of access. I'm not sure. Clover, you might be a little bit more familiar with that process.
No, they don't have that process.
Okay.
But I am friends with Brian, so I will speak to him and see if there's a way that they can get that on Devo as well. Yeah, it needs to be on there. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
If not, we're going to have to invite you out here to the Black Prisoner Congress organization that we have so you can bring it in and show it and talk about to the brothers in here, man, if that's something that you would like. That'd be good. I think for them to see that and also to talk to you personally.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. So, Dominic, that's probably something that we can work on.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. And thank you so much. I appreciate you and appreciate you sharing your story. This is basically the heart of what Second Chance is about, so thank you so much. And have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Phil, stay up, bro. Stay focused, man.
I will, man. Thank you, man. And you do the same out there, man.
Yes, sir. All right. Have a good one. Be safe.
All right, everyone. It's a wrap. I am Clover A. Perez, and this is Converse with Clover. Take care.
Take care.